So we are the CSU CI Walking Tour team. This is our presentation. My name is Matt.
My name is Kara.
And I'm Noah.
So our representative couldn't be here, but we have Terry representing us for now. So just to give like a little brief introduction, kind of what we're going to go over. So project organization, kind of the background of their mission statement, the project plan, kind of our research goals, and then we'll go through each of our topics, and then we'll do a brief update on our deliverables. So a lot of the presentations up to this point have been very like data intensive. Our project is very research intensive. So I think it kind of creates a unique opportunity to explore that side of it. But before that, let's talk about the facility services. So they provide campus ground maintenance and custodial services, along with organizing event setups and cleanups, and a host of another slew of operations. These are automotive, electrical, plumbing, so everything that kind of keeps the campus running like nice and pretty. And so we took a brief excerpt from the mission statement that we kind of connected with. So they say they're about providing highest quality service by practicing excellent workmanship, exhibiting forward vision, using resources effectively and efficiently, and continuously improving the quality of service. So kind of our goal initially at the start of this was to seek information pertaining to the changing land uses of the area currently inhabited by the school, and to visualize that information using online deliverables that we'll talk about later. So using an app called a Sidewalk app, which is a self-guided tour, user-friendly to create those tours, and then a Esri story map. So we've kind of broken down the eras into three distinct eras, or the history into three distinct eras. So Chumash, Ranchland, and Hospital. And so Noah will take away Chumash.
Hello, everyone. Noah again. So the era that I decided to focus on is the Chumash period. In this class, you know, a lot of our discussion that we've been talking about is how have we been using the land. And by far, the longest use and occupation of this land around us is by the Chumash people. And the Chumash people, they are a Native American tribe. They've existed here for upwards up to, it's believed, of 13,000 years. Their lands that they occupied started in the north of Malibu all the way up to San Luis Obispo, and to as far east as San Joaquin Valley, which is like Taft area, if anyone's familiar with that. They've existed here. They've used the land for a very multitude of amounts of ways. And one thing that I think that truly makes this period and this usage distinct is, compared to like other time periods that we will be talking about later on, is there was much more than just cultivation, and there was much more than just research, not research, harvesting of land. There was specific connection and kind of connection to the land itself, and one of the main uses that they used was making some of the landmarks around here that were of some cultural significance to them. And archaeological evidence and historical sites are found on our campus and in the surrounding areas. And first example one is the village of Simomo. I had actually learned about this village by meeting a Chumash man on the bus about 2 weeks ago. Had sat by him, sparked up a conversation, asked him if he knew of any sort of like historical stories or any landmarks or anything. And that's one of the things that he showed me and he explained to me. And it's on what is the present day Broom Ranch. Simomo, the village, was estimated to be here around 2,300 years ago. So if those who aren't familiar, Broom Ranch is about southwest of heading towards, in this direction. But yeah, there's many sites, like I said, they're considered historical resources and unique archaeological resources. And this is really defined by a lot of the work that our own Professor Colleen Delaney has done. A lot of the information that I found later on after learning about Simomo has been through a professor through anthropology around here. They were a complex society, maritime navigators that created their own currencies, master basketries, and here's some of the examples of the cultivation of land and some of what a village might have looked like back in the day. And this picture here is Wishoyo, which is actually a recreation of a Chumash village. It's actually just north of Malibu, really cool, right off the beach. I've been there thankfully I've gotten the chance to visit once, and really awesome recreation. And there is cultural activities that are still practiced there that they used to practice from back in the day. The second thing that I found is actually right over here, Round Mountain. The Chumash name for this mountain was Saquiba. I could be completely pronouncing that wrong. I definitely want to get to know a couple more knowledge to be able to say it right. But this is just kind of like a very distinct usage of the land versus the other periods. Is they had used it for like religious purposes. I mean, like it's a mountain, it's a landmark, it's a piece of actual land. But their use of it is a lot different than even what we could say now. I mean, yes, we do designated places for religious sites, but I don't know exactly what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, they used to use trading, dancing, religious ceremonies, and here's a photo of one of the winter solstice. I believe it's a kind of a staff. I'm not exactly sure about the whole significance of it, but through the Wishoyo, I did find this picture, and here's some ceremonial dances and so on and so forth. There's a couple more pictures, representations. This is actually a picture of on top of Round Mountain themselves, another recreation of the village and one of their tamales. And this is actually towards Broom Ranch, where Simomo, the Chumash village, was located around that area. And here's a couple other pictures, Boney Mountain. I've seen that. And then here's a buck that I had actually ran into while up there. Let's see, it's up in the west. Yeah.
All right. The part that I was researching was the ranch era of Channel Islands, and the first ranch that I could find way back when, in 1836, was Rancho Guadalesca. It was 30,594 acres, and that actually, if you want to think about like how big that is about from Plain View Beach all the way over the Santa Monica Mountains. Yeah, it's at Guadalesca Creek. So it's a very large piece of land. That was the first rancho in this whole area. And that was a Mexican magistrate given to the widow of one of the soldiers that was fighting the war back then. And yeah, so the widow, Isabel Yorba, she built a Beliza house and adobe house. She adopted 4 girls, and she sold her rancho for $28,000, which back then was really large sum of money, and she was able to leave the rest of her estate to her daughters. So she was considered one of the most influential women back then, which is really amazing. So this is some of the pictures of Lewis Ranch, which is the actual ranch that most of Channel Islands is from. This right here is one of the ranchers. This is the all the people that were kind of doing lima bean farming, and that's like the place where they had food. So it's called a chuck wagon. It's from 1917. It's really cool. Found a lot of pictures from back then. And that is Joseph F. Lewis, and that is the guy that bought Lewis Ranch from the widow way back when. Okay, so Lewis Ranch was an 8,200 acre section of Rancho Guadalesca that was sold to Joseph F. Lewis. They used this farm and this ranch for lima beans, alfalfa, and hay. And due to the stock market crash of 1929, the family lost most of their farm and had to sell it for very cheaply to the state so that they could build the hospital. And also another portion of Rancho Guadalesca was sold to the Broom family. So that was 23,000 acres. So that's most of Rancho Guadalesca went to the Broom Ranch, and the descendant of the guy that bought that ranch is John S. Broom, John Square Broom, which is the owner, not the owner, he donated $5 million to Channel Islands, and they built the library with that money. That is one of the largest donations in Ventura County history. Yeah, so pretty cool. And I found this really awesome newspaper article from way back when. It tells you kind of like, oh, you know, Miss Frances Broom, which is the wife of Mr. Francis Broom and owner of the Big Ranch. All right, some cool things that I found also is all the TV shows and movies that were filmed here at CI. I also found that NSYNC filmed a music video here. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you guys know any throwbacks, there is X-Files, Dragnet, The Ring, obviously, because of the well that is actually a smokestack. And also, we are doing another location, which is the fountain, and one of the quotes we found on that was from President Richard Rush. The fountain will serve as a gathering place for our campus and community. Yeah, that's awesome.
So the kind of the third era that we looked at is the state hospital era. Probably one that we're probably most familiar with as students. Kind of the one that kind of, I guess, garners the most like taboo kind of perspective. So the proposal to dedicate a state hospital was actually enacted in 1929 in the form of an act, and it basically authorized the Director of Institutions, Director of Finance, and Director of Public Works to find a suitable site for purchase, and that this would also grant land and water rights to that land as approved by the Secretary of State. And up to this point, that suitable place hadn't been found. That's kind of where the transitionary like period kind of comes into place. Tara mentioned Lewis. So it was actually a joint business agreement by Joseph Lewis and Adolfo Camarillo to sell more than 1,600 acres of land to the state of California. So it was then subsequently purchased in 1932. And initially they only had 10 patients and like 3 staff members working it initially. And then 4 years later, it was officially dedicated as a mental state hospital. So I have this paper. Can I see that paper? Sorry. So the state architect wrote about its dedication. Jordan McDougall said, after several months of examination, investigation, and careful consideration of more than 200 suggested sites, the location near Camarillo was selected and is undoubtedly the best site for a mental hospital. I think some of the reasons that went into that, funny enough, are some of the reasons that many students come here. So like the proximity to the big cities, Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, the great weather, the proximity to the beach. And so apart from being a hospital, it had several other uses while maintaining itself as a hospital. So Central Mall, similarly, it was used for recreation, so it was a landscaped area for recreation use for the patients. There was the housing for staff and nurses. So similar to us, like we have, while we operate as a school, we still have other land uses like housing and recreation. Something that we don't have that they had was a dairy, operating dairy. So some of you may be familiar with this. So this is the dairy right here, and this is the hay barn where it could house where they feed the cows. So it would house up to 425 cows. Also, they operated a farm, so a hog farm which held up to 600 hogs, and also a poultry farm that held 10,000 chickens. There are pictures online of the slaughterhouse. I didn't include those pictures for obvious reasons. So yeah, it operated as multiple uses, so I think was really interesting. And so kind of getting into our deliverables, so using all that information and research that we had, our first deliverable was a sidewalk app. So it's a self-guided, user self-guided walking tour. So we're kind of combining pictures with like histories to go around campus. This is a much more like practical, self-guided kind of project. So anyone can pick up this app, download it, and go to this story, and they can start at the place, and it will then guide them through different locations of the school, so they can get a background of like different buildings, different facilities, and stuff like that. We also have a story map, which I don't have any visual things on the story map, but now that we have like kind of like all the research consolidated, it's going to be a lot easier to kind of put that together. So we kind of have a split functionality kind of going on. So the sidewalk is a much more practical use walking through. The story map is a much more of a narrative kind of like consolidation of information to kind of get a background of the school and how its land uses have changed. through time. So it's a story about the land and its people. So I think that kind of gives us a unique opportunity to explore the history of this campus. And that's it. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, generally not. So, so I think it's fantastic. And I think it's really interesting for the opportunity to use specific points on campus to maybe tell some of like this bigger, broader history. So I think that's fantastic. More than just listening now. My only comment would be that you talk about the 3 eras, but don't forget about era number 4.
A lot of that work is already done, though. I mean, with all the interpretive guides that we have in the existing buildings, I feel like that.
No, it's a good point, but there might be ways to tie it in.
Right. No,
we already
absolutely.
have good
Yeah.
maps and stuff, but there might be some cool tie-ins just based on like the locations you pick to build out this content.
And we are using the fountain is one of our
Yeah.
That's the only one we have currently, but we will have
How many locations are you proposing to do as part of this project? I mean,
Right.
obviously, it could go on and on and on and on. Some days eventually.
Right.
So, but what's your goal?
I think what we're working on, the school actually has a pamphlet that is like a tour, and they have like 10 distinct locations. So we don't want to like over convolute it. So I think an area around like 10 solid locations around campus, because we're looking honestly for the best stories, kind of the best points of interest. And I think we'll have that, and I think it'll pair nicely with a story map to kind of go into depth with more like historical anecdotes as to more like select stories. Because like within those eras, there are stories about there's certain people that we want to key in on. So I think we'll kind of look at that as well.
Good. That's excellent. I just met with Julie Tumamite, she's the Chumash representative for this area, regarding the University of Glen Phase 2 project, and we're going to be doing some sort of interpretive garden associated with that project. So hopefully one of these days that'll happen.
Yeah.
And when we can add that into
Absolutely.
the list, it'll be fun to see that progression.
We've had these talks with Colleen early on about how we want to establish this project, and it can be something that's ongoing that students can contribute to, because land use is changing all the time. So I think this project, since it's so tied to land use, is a changing and evolving project. So I think it's a really unique opportunity there too.
And the sidewalk app is very intuitive to use, so it will be really easy to add new little
You old guys
sections.
like we do.
Very easy.
Are there questions from the audience?
So I saw that you caught up about the chimney, because I've had like 3 or 4 different variations on that in presentations that were just off the wall stuff. Where do those stories come from? So I'm glad you found the natural history.
And that's why one more thing to add. It's really, that's like the first thing I think a lot of us learn when we get to this campus about, you used to be a mental hospital. So it's a really cool thing to explore the actual history and read up. And it's a great resource we have as part of the online Bloom archives. They have a whole collection of, when it was a hospital, like documents, pictures, oral interviews, like all of these really, really cool resources to learn more about it. I think everyone should kind of like look there and see why. Yeah. All the action.
Cool. Thanks, team.